In America today, the cost of living is often discussed in numbers. Prices, wages, inflation, and statistics dominate the conversation. But for millions of people, the real impact is not just financial. It is behavioral. It is emotional. It is psychological. Rising costs are quietly reshaping how people plan their lives, manage risk, build relationships, and define success. Everyday decisions now carry weight. Spontaneity feels dangerous. Stability feels like an achievement. This is not a story about collapse. It is a story about adjustment. About how ordinary people adapt to an economy that demands constant strategy just to stay afloat. To understand the true cost of living in America today, we have to look beyond prices. We have to look at how life itself is being reshaped. Because what's changing is not just how much things cost, it's how people live. In America today, many people are not giving up on life. They are postponing it. The dreams are still there. The plans still exist. But the timeline keeps moving further away. Deferred living has become a quiet pattern across everyday life. Marriage is delayed, children are postponed, career moves are put on hold, personal ambitions are filed away for someday, not because people lack desire or direction, but because the economic moment never feels right. For previous generations, adulthood followed a familiar rhythm. Education led to work. Work led to stability. Stability created space for long-term commitments. Today, that rhythm is broken. Income feels uncertain, costs feel permanent. The foundation that once made planning possible no longer feels solid. Marriage, once seen as a step toward stability, is now treated as a financial risk. Weddings carry heavy price tags. Shared living requires security that many do not have. Couples wait, not because of doubt, but because the margin for error feels too thin. Love exists, but timing feels hostile. The decision to have children is delayed even further. Childcare, healthcare, housing, and time off work all demand resources that feel out of reach. Parenthood becomes something to prepare for indefinitely rather than something to grow into. People tell themselves they will be ready later when life feels less fragile. Career movement follows the same logic. Switching jobs, relocating, or pursuing a different path used to signal progress. Now, it feels dangerous. Stability, even imperfect stability, is protected at all costs. People stay in roles they have outgrown, not because they lack ambition, but because uncertainty feels unaffordable. Personal dreams shrink quietly in the background. Creative projects, travel, education, and self-improvement are postponed until finances improve. But improvement rarely arrives all at once. Dreams remain intact, but untouched, waiting for a moment that never seems to come. As a result, life begins to feel like a prolonged waiting room. People are busy, productive, and responsible. Yet emotionally paused, time passes, but milestones remain just out of reach. The future is not rejected, it is delayed. This state of deferral carries its own weight. Living in anticipation creates frustration without closure. Effort continues without resolution. People do not feel stagnant, but they do not feel fully alive either. Deferred living is not about indecision. It is about timing in an economy that never feels aligned with human life cycles. Americans are not choosing to wait. They are adapting to a reality where the cost of moving forward feels higher than the cost of standing still. And over time, the most painful part is not what is lost, but what is constantly postponed. A life imagined, delayed not by lack of will, but by an economy that keeps asking people to wait a little longer. In America today, people are not becoming more cautious by choice. They are becoming cautious by necessity. As the cost of living rises, risk no longer feels like opportunity. It feels like exposure. Everyday risk aversion has quietly reshaped how people move through their lives. Decisions that once felt reasonable now feel dangerous. Taking time off work is no longer restorative. It is stressful. Time away raises questions about job security, lost income, and falling behind. Rest begins to feel like a liability. Career mobility has changed as well. Switching jobs used to signal ambition and confidence. Today, It is weighed against the risk of losing health coverage, income continuity, or seniority. Even when better opportunities exist, many people stay where they are. Stability, even imperfect stability, becomes something to protect. New opportunities are approached with hesitation. Starting a business, changing fields, or investing in long-term growth requires upfront risk. In an environment with little financial buffer, those risks feel disproportionate. People wait for perfect conditions that rarely arrive. This shift alters workplace culture. Employees become more compliant, less experimental. Creativity is replaced by caution. Innovation slows not because ideas disappear, but because failure becomes too expensive. The cost of being wrong feels higher than the reward of being right. Risk aversion also affects how people relate to time. Vacations are postponed, sick days are avoided, breaks are shortened. People show up even when exhausted because absence carries uncertainty. The workplace absorbs more of life, not through ambition, but through fear. Over time, this mindset becomes internalized. People begin to self-regulate, limiting their own options before external forces do. They decline chances preemptively. They choose safety over growth without being asked. The economy trains people to shrink their aspirations. This has long-term consequences. Careers plateau. Skills stagnate. Confidence erodes. People remain busy but feel stuck. Progress becomes incremental, defensive, and fragile. Everyday risk aversion does not announce itself loudly. It blends into responsibility, maturity, and realism. But beneath that surface is an environment that discourages boldness. Not because people lack courage, but because the margin for failure has disappeared. The rising cost of living has not only made life more expensive, it has made experimentation feel irresponsible. And when risk becomes something to avoid rather than explore, the shape of everyday life changes quietly but profoundly. In America today, life does not stop when costs rise. It adapts. And one of the most common adaptations is replacement. Not replacement with something better, but with something cheaper, faster, and more temporary. Quality is quietly replaced by substitutes. Durable goods are swapped for lower-cost versions designed to last just long enough. Furniture, appliances, clothing, and tools are chosen for price rather than longevity. Repairs are avoided because replacement is cheaper in the short term. What once felt like an investment now feels like a risk. Experiences follow the same pattern. In-person moments are replaced with digital alternatives. Streaming replaces theaters. Virtual connection replaces physical presence. Convenience takes priority over depth. These substitutions keep life moving, but they reduce its texture. Satisfaction itself begins to change. The goal is no longer enjoyment or pride of ownership. It is functionality. Does it work? Is it affordable? Can it get through the month? Emotional fulfillment is quietly deprioritized in favor of practice. This shift does not happen all at once. It happens gradually through small decisions made under financial pressure. Each compromise feels reasonable on its own. Over time, those compromises accumulate and redefine expectations. As standards adjust, people begin to accept less. Not because they want to, but because constant replacement feels easier than constant sacrifice. The idea of good enough replaces the pursuit of quality. Life becomes efficient, but thinner. This normalization has long-term effects. Cheap replacements wear out faster. Digital substitutes lack depth. Functional choices rarely provide restoration. The cycle repeats, reinforcing a lifestyle built on short-term solutions. From the outside, nothing appears broken. People still consume, communicate, and participate. But something has changed beneath the surface. The bar has lowered quietly and collectively. The cost of living has not only reshaped what people buy, it has reshaped what they expect from life. When substitutes become normal, standards follow. And over time, the most significant loss is not money. It is the slow erosion of quality that once made everyday life feel richer, more durable, and more complete. For decades, everyday life in America included a financial cushion. Not wealth, not abundance, but a buffer. A small margin that allowed mistakes, surprises, and short-term setbacks without turning them into crises. That buffer is disappearing. Buffer spending was never about luxury. It was about flexibility. The ability to absorb a flat tire, a higher utility bill, or an unexpected fee without derailing the entire month. Today, that margin has thinned to the point of near invisibility. A flat tire is no longer an inconvenience. It is a problem that requires trade-offs. Fixing it may mean delaying a bill, cutting groceries, or adding debt. A single repair forces a chain of decisions that ripple through the rest of the month. Unexpected bills create the same effect. Medical fees, service charges, school expenses, or minor emergencies no longer fit neatly into a budget. They disrupt it. What was once manageable becomes destabilizing. Not because the expense is large, but because there is no room to absorb it. Even small timing issues now carry consequences. A delayed paycheck, a late fee, a scheduling change. Each one can trigger a cascade. Payments fall out of order, penalties stack, stress compounds. The system leaves no space for error. This lack of buffer reshapes behavior. People become hyper-aware of every expense. Caution replaces ease. Financial decisions are made defensively with constant attention to potential disruptions. Life is lived with one eye on the bank balance. Over time, this erodes a sense of security. When there is no margin, every day feels precarious. Stability becomes something that must be actively maintained, not something that can be trusted. People move carefully, avoiding risk not out of fear, but out of necessity. The disappearance of buffer spending also affects mental health. Living without a cushion creates continuous low-level anxiety. There is no true recovery from stress because the next disruption is always possible. Rest feels fragile. Calm feels temporary. From the outside, life may appear unchanged. People still work, pay bills, and meet obligations. But beneath that routine is a constant awareness that one small event can unravel everything. Everyday life loses its softness. This is one of the most underestimated consequences of the rising cost of living. Not dramatic collapse, but chronic vulnerability. A system where survival depends on precision, timing, and constant attention. When buffer spending disappears, life becomes rigid. There is no room to breathe, no space to recover. And without that margin, even ordinary days begin to feel heavy. The blurring of work and life in America is often blamed on hustle culture. Long hours, ambition, the pressure to always do more. But for many people today, the collapse of boundaries is not driven by desire. It is driven by cost. Life has become too expensive to keep work contained. Work now stretches beyond offices and schedules. Emails are checked on weekends. Messages are answered late at night. Calls are returned during family time, not because people want to appear dedicated, but because missing a message feels risky. Job security feels fragile, and availability becomes a form of protection. Time off no longer functions as recovery. Vacations are interrupted. Holidays are monitored. Sick days are negotiated. Even when people step away physically, their minds remain tethered to work. Financial pressure keeps the connection alive. This shift changes how rest is experienced. Rest is no longer free, it is conditional. People relax cautiously, aware that any disengagement could have consequences. Leisure carries a background tension. The mind never fully disconnects. The cost of living reinforces this dynamic. As expenses rise, the stakes of employment increase. Losing a job, missing hours, or appearing replaceable carries immediate risk. Work becomes more than income. It becomes insurance. Over time, people internalize this reality. They preemptively extend their availability. They manage their own boundaries downward, shrinking personal space to preserve stability. Work seeps into mornings, evenings, and weekends without formal demand. This constant engagement has psychological consequences. Without clear separation, stress accumulates. The brain remains in problem-solving mode. Recovery is incomplete. Burnout becomes gradual rather than sudden. The erosion of boundaries also reshapes identity. People define themselves increasingly through work, not out of pride, but out of necessity. Employment becomes the central organizing force of life, pushing personal interests and relationships to the margins. From the outside, this looks like dedication. Productivity appears high, responsiveness is praised. But beneath that surface is fatigue driven by economic pressure, not ambition. The work-life blur is not a cultural failure. It is an economic outcome, a response to an environment where survival requires constant engagement. When life becomes too expensive to pause, work does not simply take more time. It takes mental space. And when there is no clear line between labor and living, everyday life becomes an extension of the job, not by choice, but by necessity. In America today, rising living costs have done more than strain personal finances. They have quietly reshaped not belief in effort or work ethic, but belief in institutions. More people are no longer asking for help. They are assuming it will not come. Trust in government has eroded as everyday support feels distant or inconsistent. Assistance programs appear complicated, delayed, or inadequate. Policies change slowly while costs rise quickly. For many, the gap between need and response feels permanent. Corporate trust follows the same pattern. Employers speak the language of care, flexibility, and well-being, but job security remains fragile. Layoffs arrive suddenly. Benefits shift without warning. Loyalty feels loosened. Workers learn that protection is conditional and often temporary. The system as a whole feels unreliable. Healthcare, housing, education, and employment no longer feel coordinated to support ordinary life. Instead, they operate as separate pressures, each demanding attention and resources. When something breaks, there is no clear place to turn. As trust declines, expectations shrink. People stop assuming that institutions will intervene in moments of crisis. They prepare to handle problems alone. Emergency plans become personal. Backup strategies replace social safety nets. This shift changes behavior. People become skeptical of promises. They avoid reliance. They minimize exposure. Stability is built privately, if at all. Collective solutions feel distant and abstract. Psychologically, this isolation is heavy. Carrying responsibility without institutional support creates chronic stress. People feel alone inside systems that are supposed to protect them. Cynicism grows not from ideology, but from experience. What makes this erosion especially damaging is its subtlety. Trust does not collapse suddenly. It fades through repeated disappointments. Each unmet expectation reinforces the belief that self-reliance is the only option. From the outside, this looks like independence. But beneath it lies resignation, a quiet acceptance that the system will not catch you if you fall. The rising cost of living has not only made life harder, it has weakened the relationship between people and the structures meant to support them. When institutions are no longer trusted to function in moments of need, everyday life becomes more cautious, more isolated, and more fragile. And in that environment, survival becomes a personal responsibility, not a shared one. In today's America, spontaneity is no longer seen as freedom. It is seen as risk. As the cost of living rises, unplanned moments carry financial weight. A sudden decision is no longer just emotional or social. It must be justified, calculated, evaluated for consequences. Life becomes scheduled not for efficiency, but for safety. Spontaneous dinners turn into budget discussions. Last-minute trips become sources of anxiety. Even small indulgences require internal negotiations. Every choice asks the same question: is this worth it? This shift changes how people experience time. Moments are no longer open-ended. They are framed by cost. Fun is conditional. Relaxation is earned, not assumed. Planning replaces impulse. Calendars fill with obligations, not possibilities. People prepare for life instead of discovering it. This constant calculation creates emotional tension. Joy loses immediacy. Surprise feels dangerous. Even happiness needs approval. Social behavior adapts. Invitations are declined, not because of disinterest, but because of uncertainty. People avoid open-ended commitments. Flexibility becomes expensive. Over time, spontaneity feels irresponsible. Not morally, but financially. The idea of just going somewhere feels reckless in an economy where margins are thin. The loss is subtle but profound. Spontaneity is where connection often lives. Shared laughter, unexpected memories, unplanned relief from routine. When those moments disappear, life becomes flatter. From the outside, this looks like discipline. But internally, it is caution shaped by pressure. A survival instinct refined by repeated constraint. The tragedy is not that people plan more. It is that planning replaces possibility. As the cost of living reshapes everyday life, spontaneity becomes a luxury few feel they can afford. And when life loses its unscripted moments, it becomes efficient, stable, and quietly less alive. In America today, success is quietly being rewritten. For generations, success was defined by growth, more income, better titles, bigger homes, constant upward movement. Progress was visible, measurable, and expected. That definition is fading. As the cost of living rises, ambition does not disappear, it changes shape. Success is no longer about expansion, it is about stability. About knowing that next month looks like this month. About predictability in a life filled with volatility. About control in systems that feel increasingly uncontrollable. People now measure success by what does not go wrong. No emergencies, no sudden bills, no unexpected disruptions. Stability becomes the achievement. This shift alters how people approach work. Career decisions prioritize reliability over opportunity. A steady paycheck is valued more than potential growth. Risk is avoided not because people lack talent, but because failure has become too expensive. Housing choices reflect the same logic. Owning less space but with manageable costs feels like success. Long-term flexibility is traded for immediate security. The goal is no longer optimization. It is containment. Even personal goals are reframed. Instead of asking, "How far can I go?" people ask, "How safe can I stay?" Progress becomes defensive. Dreams are scaled to fit uncertainty. This redefinition of success carries psychological weight. People feel grateful for stability, but also restrained by it. Ambition survives, but it is cautious, focused inward. Less about recognition, more about from the outside, this can look like lowered expectations, but internally, it is strategic. A recalibration to survive prolonged economic pressure. The danger lies in normalization. When stability alone becomes success, stagnation can quietly settle in. Innovation slows, risk-taking declines. Long-term growth becomes secondary to short-term security. Yet, for many, this trade-off feels unavoidable. In an economy where one mistake can unravel years of effort, protecting what exists becomes more rational than chasing what might be. The cost of living has not only raised prices, it has reshaped aspiration itself. Success in America is no longer about how high you climb. It is about how well you can hold your ground.